Fresh start. In my last video, I talked about how my goal with this channel is to keep up my motivation and focus for making a game, and to have some people hold me accountable on that goal. What type of game is it that I'm planning to make? I'm planning to make an RPG, or more specifically, an action-adventure based RPG, or action-adventure with RPG elements. I'll explain. So what is an RPG? RPG stands for role-playing game, or in other words, a game where a player assumes the role of a character in the world. RPGs are also really well known for having elements such as leveling up, experience points, diverging paths, diverging story. There's a few different ways this goes. Classically, there are tabletop RPGs. This is when you gather up a group of friends, you play something like Dungeons and Dragons, dice, a dungeon master comes up with a setting and a world and a story, and you and your friends play within that world and story, using your imaginations to come up with solutions, decide where you want to go, etc. There's also turn-based RPGs. Usually they're Japanese RPGs, JRPGs. Very widespread in Japan, very popular over the years. You've got series like Final Fantasy, which is a very big one. Blew up a lot here in the States, back on Super Nintendo, then again in PlayStation years, with games such as Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy IX, Final Fantasy VIII, Final Fantasy X, 12, etc. Dragon Quest, other games like Persona is another big one. You also have tactical RPGs. These are things like Armored Core, Final Fantasy Tactics, Tactics Ogre. There's a lot of good tactical RPG game. These are well noted for you having control of a team of players who engage on a battlefield against an opponent. It's usually turn-based as well. You take a turn positioning your party members for best advantage, and then the enemy has their turn to rebut your attack. There's also MMO RPGs. These are your World of Warcrafts, EverQuest, EVE Online. I don't spend as much time with MMOs, but I do know they are a big genre, very popular. There's also what are known as action RPGs. This is where the line starts to get fuzzy for most people. There's a purist take on it that action RPGs are something very specific, and there's the more casual gamer approach where action RPG is a much more wide-reaching genre. I happen to be in the latter category. I consider action RPGs everything from Gothic, the Fallout series, all of them, Skyrim, and even things like Zelda and Metroid, for me, are considered action RPGs. I will allow for action adventure RPGs. Some people distinguish between action adventure games and action RPGs. I'm not one of them. For me, I play them both for the same reasons. The biggest difference I've been able to tell is ones that are considered action adventure are much more linear in their story, whereas action RPGs tend to give you more options on how you can approach the story and how you'll tackle the challenges. So why am I deciding to make an RPG? Because it's what I like. It's what I like to play. It's what got me really into games and what I've always enjoyed. Now, most developers will tell you this is not where you should start making games. Why do they say this? Because making games is hard. It's very hard. It's hard for people to often stay motivated into making their game. It's hard for people to keep up, and RPGs generally involve a lot of different aspects of game development. You're talking, you need to know a little bit about AI. You usually need to know quite a bit about building an inventory system. You need to know about your textures. You'll need to know a lot about loading in your assets. You'll need to know how to expand on your world, work with collisions and objects. There's a lot. Am I still going to do it? Absolutely. I have tried some of the lighter games, things like Brick Breaker or Space Invaders. You learn a lot starting with those, and those are some of the things I'll go over in my own videos to show here's what you need to know, and here's some practice things you can do to learn these different techniques. But they're a good place to start. But this is the game I want to make, and so this is what I'm going to be focused on. It's going to take some time, but that's what this channel is all about: motivation, focus. With that being said, I'll be starting with the bare basics. Movement, things like jumping, running, walking, fighting, just the basic fighting, swinging a sword, hitting a thing. Also, I'll be working on interacting with non-playable characters, NPCs for those who know. These things are the bare minimum that you need to really make a good role-playing game. A character goes from one place to another, interacts with something in that place. Maybe it's a fight, maybe it's just a conversation. Usually there's a reward, rinse and repeat. That's what's known as the core loop of the game. If that part's not fun, the game is not fun. So that's why I really want to focus there. If I can get this core part to a state that feels right, feels good to play, I know I have something. From there, the next step is to add the polish, add extra features, flesh everything out, add in the story, add in little nuance things, which I'll go over in another video as I get to that point. I don't want to give everything away that I have in mind for this game. Plus, there's some things I need to see if they work at all, if they're fun. If it's not fun, is it really a game? Before, I also talked about I'd be using the Unity engine. There's 3 main reasons for this. The first is Unity has a huge asset store. Assets are your character models, backgrounds, villages, music, basically everything that makes the game that you see and interact with, other than the code, is usually an asset. There's a ton of them. People make them, they put them up for sale, and I can get them from Unity, and there's a lot of them for Unity. That's the first thing. The second thing is that there is a really large community of developers using Unity, and they like to help each other out. So if I run into a problem, I can get in touch with one of these people and talk to them about the problems I'm having, and possibly they'll be able to help me or recommend somewhere where I can find the help I need to get me out of a tight spot. Third reason is that there are tons of tutorials online, on YouTube, on Unity itself, on how to use their software to make a game, how to tackle different problems, because there's not just one way to do it. Unity has tons of tutorials. Other people have made tutorials. There's even tutorials on full RPG making walkthroughs. You can do a game in 2 dimensions, 3 dimensions, a big game, a small game. Tutorials exist for all of these things, and I will be using some of those. Is Unity the only engine with these things, assets, community, and tutorials? No, there's the Unreal Engine, Godot, depends. I've heard it could be pronounced either way. There's Lumberyard by Amazon, the Cry engine. There's probably some engines I'm not even aware of. Unity just happens to be the one that I feel is the best fit for me. It also uses C#, which is a language I'm somewhat familiar with. I originally learned a little bit of C+ back in college. That is the main reason why I'll be using Unity and not these other engines. If you do have an interest in those other engines and some of their features, leave a comment, let me know, and maybe I'll make a video going over some of their features as well. Going forward, I'll be doing a lot of my dev work live right here on my channel, and usually on YouTube. You can also find me on Twitch. You can find me on either one. I'll be trying to post the live videos of me actually going through the process. Now, there will be some research and things I do ahead of time before I actually go live on the stream, so that the whole stream doesn't consist of me just searching through Google trying to figure out where did I go wrong, what needs fixing, etc. And hopefully, just like there's tutorials and community, I'll become part of that community, because people can look at these videos and see this is where you can start from, and eventually this is where you can end up. That's all I have for today. Thank you for watching this to the end. Thank you if you've chosen to like or subscribe to the channel. Please check back here. This is where I'll be doing all my live streams, all my updates. You'll also be able to find them on Twitch. Again, links in the description. Catch you on the next one. Peace.